The Great Hall of the Galactic Senate was the most beautiful place in the known universe. Its walls were made of crystal that caught light from distant stars. Floating platforms held representatives from 47 different alien species. Some were tall with insect bodies. Some were made of living stone. Some were just blobs of glowing jelly that pulsed with soft light. In the center of this grand chamber stood a single human woman. Her name was, and she was the only voice that spoke for all of humanity in this place. She wore a simple dark suit. Her black hair was pulled back tight. Her hands did not shake, even though billions of people were counting on her words today. "Members of the Senate," said, her voice clear and strong, "Earth asks to become a Tier 2 species. We have done everything you asked. Our power technology is stable. Our ships have reached 3 new star systems. We have increased our trade with the collective by 400%. A strange sound filled the chamber. It was laughter. The tall insect creatures called were clicking their jaws together in amusement. Their leader, High Arbiter, leaned forward on his platform. His many eyes sparkled with cruel joy. "The humans think they are ready," he said. His words came through a translator that made them sound smooth. "How very sweet." More laughter came from around the room. The stone-skins slapped their hard bellies. The gas creatures from the outer worlds rippled with amusement. Even some of the quieter species seemed to smile. Kept her face calm. She had expected this. Humans had faced this mockery for 80 years now, ever since they first made contact with the collective. To the older species, humans were like children playing at being adults. They were useful for small tasks but not worthy of respect. Far away from the Senate, in a space station orbiting Earth, Admiral Park watched everything through a secure connection. He was an old man with gray hair and deep lines on his face. His uniform was crisp and clean. His hands, hidden under his control panel, were squeezed into tight fists. "They are laughing at her again," said Captain. She stood beside him, her young face twisted with anger. "Let them laugh," replied softly. "Watch their faces, remember who laughs the loudest." In the Senate chamber, the voting began. Holographic numbers spun in the air above his head, counting each vote. Against humanity, 41; for humanity, 6. Nobody chose to stay neutral. The numbers burned in the air like a judgment. "Your request is announced." He did not try to hide his pleasure. "Humanity will remain Tier 3 for another cycle. Perhaps in time you will learn to be patient." Bowed, it was not a bow of defeat. It was the kind of bow her grandmother had taught her long ago. Controlled, precise, giving nothing away. "The Senate's wisdom is noted," she said. "Earth will think about its position." She turned to leave. Behind her spoke again, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Think quickly, little species. Tier 3 worlds can be reassigned. Your colonies exist because we allow them to exist." The threat hung in the air like poison. Several alien delegates nodded in agreement. A few looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Did not turn around. She walked out of the chamber with her head held high. That night she sat alone in her ship, the horizon's edge. The stars outside her window seemed cold and distant. She opened a secure channel to Earth and waited for the connection to form. Fleet Commander Han appeared on the screen. She was young for such an important position, only 40 years old. But there were gray streaks in her black hair that told of heavy burdens and sleepless nights. "They refused us," reported, "and now they threaten to take our colonies." Nodded slowly. Her face showed no surprise. "Then we begin Protocol Sunset." Felt her heart beat faster. "Commander, once we start this, we cannot stop. There is no going back." Ambassador's voice was soft but hard as steel. "They have laughed at us for 80 years. They have taxed our colonies. They have blocked our technology. They have treated us like beggars asking for scraps from their table." She paused and took a slow breath. "It is time to leave the table. The Senate will not understand what is happening until it is too late." That is the point. Back on the Senate station, celebrated with his allies. They drank expensive liquids and made jokes about the foolish humans. One delegate suggested that perhaps humanity should be moved to a smaller region of space, somewhere they could cause less trouble. They are useful, admitted. Their doctors are skilled, their engineers work hard, but they must learn their place. Every young species must learn. None of them noticed the human staff members quietly packing their belongings that night. None of them saw the messages being sent across human communication networks. None of them understood that in trying to keep humanity small, they had made a terrible mistake. Looked out at the stars one last time before starting her journey home. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were waiting to hear what would happen next. They had been patient for so long. They had smiled when they wanted to scream. They had bowed when they wanted to fight. No more. The humans would not shout. They would not threaten. They would not beg. They would simply disappear. And then the galaxy would learn what it meant to lose something it never knew it needed. The changes began so slowly that nobody noticed. Like water dripping from a crack in a wall, it seemed like nothing at first. But drop by drop, the damage grew. Human merchants started refusing to renew their business contracts. When alien companies asked why, the humans simply smiled and said they had other plans. Human engineers finished their projects, collected their pay, and boarded ships heading back to Earth. They did not complain. They did not argue. They just left. On the farming world a overseer named stared at his production reports with growing concern. The numbers were dropping. Crops that usually grew tall and strong were starting to wilt. "Where are the human specialists?" he demanded. His assistant checked the records and grew pale. "They left last month, overseer, all of them. They said their contracts were finished." "All of them at the same time?" "Yes, overseer." Felt a chill run through his body. Humans had been working on for 30 years. They had learned the secrets of the alien soil. They had created special growing techniques that tripled the harvest, and now they were gone. On a mining station called Seven, a foreman named discovered that his entire human team had vanished in the night. No warning, no formal resignation, just empty rooms and a single message glowing on the computer screen. The message read, "Thank you for the opportunity, we wish you well." Nothing more. Within 1 week, the fusion reactors that powered the station began to fail. Human engineers had built them. Human engineers had maintained them. Without human hands to keep them running, the machines started to break down. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea on Earth, Director Minyu commanded the largest secret operation in human history. His underground base was filled with glowing screens and busy workers. Every human ship, every colony vessel, every civilian transport was tracked on massive displays. "Outer colonies are 92% empty," reported Lieutenant. Her fingers flew across her controls like a pianist playing a concert. "The collective still does not see what is happening." "They will see soon," Minyu said. "When they do, we must be finished." The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. For 80 years, humans had spread themselves throughout the galactic collective like threads in a tapestry. They had taken the jobs that others considered beneath them. They had fixed machines, healed the sick, grown food, and moved cargo. They had made themselves useful in 1,000 small ways. Nobody had realized how many small things added up to something enormous. Now all those threads were being pulled out, one by one. Ambassador stood in the departure hall of the diplomatic station. Around her, alien bureaucrats rushed back and forth, barely noticing the small human woman with her single suitcase. "Ambassador, you cannot simply leave," said the collective's computer system. Its voice was polite but confused. "There are proper procedures, exit interviews, asset counting." "Of course," said with a pleasant smile. She uploaded a file to the system. "Here is our official withdrawal notice. Here is our list of all property we owned. Here is our payment for all debts. Everything is complete. The computer took several seconds to process the documents. This is very thorough. We like to be prepared. Shuttle was the last human ship to leave collective space through proper channels. Behind her, she left nothing. No debts, no unfinished business, no legal reason for anyone to chase her. Just empty spaces where humans used to be. On the medical world of Prime, the hospitals began to fill with dying patients. Human surgeons had performed most of the difficult operations. Their small hands were perfect for delicate work inside alien bodies. Other species could learn to do the same work, but learning would take years. Patients did not have years. Some did not have days. On the great trading station called Nexus, cargo ships sat motionless in long lines. Human navigators had known the safe paths through dangerous space. Without them, captains were afraid to fly. Goods rotted in storage containers. Factories on distant worlds ran out of materials. On 100 different planets, things began to fall apart. And through it all, the humans said nothing. They did not make angry speeches. They did not send threatening messages. They simply vanished like morning mist in sunlight. Lieutenant watched the final reports come in. The last human family had left collective space 3 hours ago. Every debt was paid. Every contract was complete. Legally, humanity had done nothing wrong. "It is finished," she said. Director Minu nodded. "Now we wait." How long until they understand? Not long, and when they do understand, he allowed himself a small smile. They will wish they had been kinder. Across the vast emptiness of space, the Galactic Collective continued its business without knowing that everything had changed. The great machine of their civilization kept running on momentum, like a wheel spinning after the hand that pushed it has pulled away. But wheels eventually stopped spinning. And when this one stopped, the silence would be deafening. It took exactly 47 days for the Galactic Senate to understand what had happened. 47 days of small problems becoming big problems. 47 days of confusion turning into fear. High Arbiter sat in his private office, staring at the reports on his screen. His many eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of deep distress in his species. His aide stood nearby, trembling slightly. "What do you mean, all of them?" demanded. "All of them, High Arbiter, every human, every colony, every ship. They have left all collective territory." "That is impossible. There are treaties, trade agreements, laws that say they must stay." "All fulfilled, High Arbiter." The aide swallowed nervously. "They paid every debt they owed. They completed every contract they signed. They filed every form required by law." He paused. "They were very organized about it." Slammed his claw against the desk. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. "Get me the Senate. Emergency session. Now." The great chamber that had once rung with laughter was now filled with shouting. Representatives from dozens of species screamed at each other, blaming everyone, and no one for the disaster unfolding around them. The ambassador pushed through the crowd to reach the platform. His stone face was cracked with stress lines. "Our fusion grid is failing," he bellowed. "Human engineers installed it. Human engineers fixed it when it broke. Now there are no humans and my cities are growing cold." "Then train your own engineers," snapped. "Training takes 20 years. My people will freeze before winter ends." From across the chamber, the medical delegate added her voice to the chaos. "Our hospitals are overwhelmed. Human surgeons performed 60% of all complex operations. Without them, patients are dying. Hire doctors from other species." No other species has hands precise enough for microsurgery. The humans were unique. More voices joined the storm. The transit network was collapsing. The food supply was failing. Communication systems were breaking down. Every corner of the collective was suffering, and every problem led back to the same cause. The humans were gone. A quiet voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk. "Perhaps you should not have laughed." Every head turned. Ambassador of the species rose from her seat. Her silver skin glowed with barely controlled anger. The had been one of the 6 species to vote in favor of humanity. Now she looked at her fellow senators with contempt. "You mocked them," said. "You them the respect they earned. You threatened to steal their worlds." She spread her 4 arms wide. "And when they asked for nothing more than basic dignity, you laughed in their faces." "They had no right to leave," argued. "They had every right. They owed you nothing beyond their contracts, and those contracts are complete." His voice grew louder. "Now you discover what their nothing was actually worth. Now you learn that the small people you ignored were holding up your entire civilization." The chamber exploded into more shouting. That night sent an urgent message to Earth. The transmission traveled across the stars at impossible speed, carrying his demand for explanation. No reply came. He sent another message the next day, and another the day after that. He offered negotiations. He offered apologies. He offered anything they wanted. Silence. For 30 days, humanity said nothing at all. On Prime, doctors worked until they collapsed from exhaustion. They tried to save patients they did not know how to save. They read human medical texts and watched human training videos, but reading was not the same as experience. The death count rose like a dark tide. On Nexus Station, the cargo ships finally began moving again, but slowly, carefully, like blind men walking through a forest. Several ships were lost in the dangerous passages that human navigators had once guided them through safely. The insurance companies ran out of money to pay the claims. On the harvest failed completely. Food that would have fed billions rotted in the fields. Emergency supplies were shipped in from other worlds, but there was not enough. There was never enough. And on Earth, Fleet Commander Han watched the chaos unfold on her screens. She felt no joy in the suffering. She felt no satisfaction in the deaths, but she also felt no guilt. "They created this themselves," she said to Admiral Park. "We did not destroy anything. We simply stopped holding things together." The old admiral nodded slowly. "The question now is whether they learn from this. And if they do not learn." Turn to look out the window at Earth below. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, the home that the collective had threatened to take away. "Then we stay gone," he said, "and we build something new, something that does not need them at all." In the Senate chamber, as another day of arguments ended with no solutions, finally understood the truth. The humans had not left to punish the collective. They had not left to make demands or prove a point. They had simply believed what the Senate had told them. "You are not important. You do not matter. Your contributions are small." So the humans had taken their small contributions and gone home. And now the galaxy was falling apart. The collective's diplomatic fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 20 ships, the finest the Senate could send, carrying representatives from every major species. Their mission was simple: bring the humans back. Captain of the flagship Seeker of Accord studied her sensors with growing confusion. "Where are the defense platforms?" she asked. "Where are the patrol ships?" "There is nothing, Captain," her sensor officer replied. "We detect large structures, but they are all civilian. No weapons, no military vessels." The fleet moved deeper into human space. They passed the great rings around Neptune, where factories floated in the pale light. They passed Jupiter, surrounded by mining stations and fuel collectors. They passed Mars, where massive machines were slowly turning the red planet green. Everywhere they looked, they saw humans living their lives, working, building, laughing with their families. Children played in orbital stations. Old people sat in gardens watching the stars. None of them paid any attention to the alien fleet. No warnings came, no challenges, no acknowledgement of any kind. It was as if the 20 warships simply did not exist. "This is wrong," muttered. "Why are they ignoring us?" "Perhaps they do not see us as a threat," her first officer suggested. 20 armed ships, and they do not see us as a threat. The thought was somehow more disturbing than facing a wall of weapons. The fleet reached Earth and took position in high orbit. The planet below was heartbreakingly beautiful. Blue seas sparkled in the sunlight. Vast forests covered entire continents. Cities glittered like jewels scattered across the land. Captain sent a formal request for communication. 3 hours passed before a response came. It was a simple text message. "Earth acknowledges the collective's presence. If the collective wishes to talk, one representative may come to Geneva Station. Weapons are not permitted." High Arbiter had insisted on leading this mission personally. Now, as his shuttle approached Geneva Station, he felt something he had not felt in 500 years. Uncertainty, perhaps even fear. The station was small but elegant. Clean white walls, soft lighting, plants growing in careful arrangements. A human woman in a simple uniform led him to a conference room. 3 humans waited for him there. Fleet Commander Han sat in the center chair. Ambassador sat to her right. Admiral Park sat to her left. They did not stand when entered. High Arbiter said, gesturing to an empty chair, "Please sit." Remained standing. His pride demanded at least that much. "You have created a crisis," he said. "Half the collective is suffering because of your tantrum." His face did not change. "We created nothing, we simply left." "You abandoned your duties." "We fulfilled every contract, paid every debt. We owed you nothing more." His jaw clicked rapidly. "The collective acknowledges that perhaps humanity was treated unfairly. We are prepared to offer full Tier 2 status. Immediately. No more waiting." Silence filled the room. Admiral leaned forward. "And what else? What else could you possibly want?" Ambassador spoke, her voice calm as still water. "You threatened our colonies with reassignment, High Arbiter. You spoke of our worlds as if they were furniture to be moved around. We would like to discuss that." That was merely political talk. "Words matter," stood. She was small, barely reaching his chest, but somehow she seemed to fill the room. "For 80 years we were told we were not good enough, not advanced enough, not important enough." She took a step forward. "We did not leave because we were angry. We left because we finally believed you." His eyes blinked in confusion. "I do not understand." "You told us we did not matter, so we stopped mattering to you," smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Now you have learned what that actually means." The negotiation lasted 3 weeks. Every day made offers. Every day the humans politely explained why those offers were not enough. Outside the conference room, the collective continued to crumble. More systems failed. More people suffered. More voices demanded that the Senate fix this problem immediately. Had no choice. Humanity held all the power now, and they knew it. The final agreement was signed on a quiet Tuesday morning. Humanity received Tier 2 status, as promised, but they also received something far more valuable: a permanent seat on the Galactic High Council, full control over their own territory, a formal apology written into the collective's official records. It was the first apology in 12,000 years of collective history. As pressed his claw to the document, sealing the agreement, he looked at Han. "You planned this from the beginning, did you not?" "We planned for the possibility," replied. "We hoped we would never need to use it. And if we had simply given you respect in the first place, then we would have served the collective faithfully for 1,000 years. We are not cruel, High Arbiter. We do not enjoy suffering." She paused. "But we will not be treated like servants in our own home." Nodded slowly. For the first time, he looked at the small human woman not as a lesser being, but as an equal, perhaps even as something more. "I think," he said quietly, "that we have underestimated your species." "Yes," agreed, "you have." 1 year had passed since the treaty was signed. The galaxy had changed in ways that nobody could have predicted. The Galactic Senate chamber looked the same as always. Crystal walls caught starlight. Floating platforms held representatives from 47 species. But something was different now. Something important. A new delegation sat in a place of honor near the center of the room. Their platform was simple, without the decorations that other species preferred. But everyone knew who they were. Everyone watched them with careful eyes. The humans had returned. Ambassador rose from her seat to address the assembly. Behind her, holographic screens showed images from across the collective. Human ships traveling through space. Human doctors working in hospitals. Human engineers fixing broken machines. Human teachers sharing knowledge with eager students. Honored members of the Senate said, and this time nobody laughed, humanity is pleased to work with the Galactic Collective once again. We believe that together, we can build something greater than any of us could build alone. She paused and let her eyes travel across the chamber. She looked at the who sat quietly with their claws folded. She looked at the whose stone faces showed respect instead of mockery. She looked at the dozens of species who had once dismissed humanity as unimportant. But let us be clear, continued. We do not return as servants, we return as equals, and we return with a promise. Her voice grew stronger. Treat us with dignity and we will stand beside you through any darkness. Dismiss us again. She smiled. It was the same smile her grandmother had taught her long ago on Earth, controlled, precise, full of hidden meaning. And we will simply leave. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Ambassador of the began to applaud. Her 4 hands clapped together in a steady rhythm. Others joined her. The sound grew and grew until it filled the great dome like rolling thunder. In orbit above the Senate world, Admiral Park watched the ceremony on a. Lieutenant stood beside him, as she had stood beside him through all the difficult days of the past year. The old soldier allowed himself a rare smile. Do you think they have learned their lesson? Asked. Perhaps, replied, time will tell. And if they forget, if they start treating us badly again. Turned away from the screen. Through the window of the command station, he could see the stars stretching out forever in every direction. So many stars, so many possibilities. Then we leave again, he said simply. We prove that we can survive without them. They cannot say the same about us. Down on the Senate world, the celebration continued. High Arbiter approached the human delegation with careful steps. He stopped in front of Fleet Commander Han and bowed. It was a deep bow, the kind his species reserved for honored equals. Commander Han, he said, I wish to say something. Nodded, speak. 1 year ago I thought your species was weak. I thought you were useful but unimportant. I thought we could treat you however we wished and you would simply accept it. He straightened. I was wrong, and I am sorry. The words hung in the air. Around them, other aliens watched with surprise. The High Arbiter of the Galactic Senate apologizing to a human. This was something new. Studied the alien's face for a long moment. Then she extended her hand. Apology accepted, High Arbiter. Let us move forward together. Took her small hand in his large claw. They shook once firmly. And in that moment, something shifted in the galaxy. The old order where humans were tolerated but not respected was gone forever. A new era had begun. In the months that followed, humanity returned to its work throughout the collective. But things were different now. Human doctors were treated as honored professionals. Human engineers were consulted on important projects. Human merchants were welcomed as valuable partners. And whenever someone forgot, whenever some alien bureaucrat tried to dismiss a human worker, or some politician made a joke about the small species from Earth, others would quickly remind them. Careful, they would say, the humans left once, they can leave again. The warning was always enough. Fleet Commander Han retired 2 years later. She bought a small house on the coast of Korea, where her grandmother had lived long ago. She spent her days watching the waves and reading old books. Sometimes Admiral Park would visit. They would sit together in her garden, drinking tea and remembering the days when they had changed the galaxy with nothing but patience and silence. "Do you have any regrets?" asked her once. Thought about it for a long moment. She thought about the suffering that had happened during the withdrawal, the deaths, the hardship, the chaos. "I regret that it was necessary," she said finally. "But I do not regret doing it. Sometimes you must show people what they will lose before they understand what they have." Nodded. The loudest statement is often the one made without words. "Yes," agreed. She looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear in the darkening blue. Somewhere out there, human ships were flying through the galaxy. Human hands were healing the sick and fixing the broken. Human voices were teaching and learning and growing. They had earned their place among the stars, not through war, not through threats, but through the simple act of walking away. And the galaxy would never forget the sound of their silence.